Most people fight for attention. They try to stay visible. They try to stay available. They believe the more they show up, the more they will matter. But strategic people don't fight for attention. They fight for mental territory, because attention is temporary. Mental space is power. When someone owns your time, that's influence. But when someone owns your thoughts, when you replay their words, when you wonder what they meant, when their presence stays with you even after they leave, that's power. You don't need to chase attention. You need to occupy the mind, and that is a completely different game. Most people think obsession is created by intensity. They believe if they give more energy, more emotion, more effort, people will become attached. But obsession doesn't come from intensity. It comes from psychological tension. The human mind is not controlled by what is obvious. It is controlled by what feels unfinished. When everything is explained, the brain relaxes. When everything is predictable, interest fades. But when something feels incomplete, when there is curiosity, when there is uncertainty, when there is something left unsaid, the mind keeps returning again and again. This is why the most powerful people are not the loudest. They are the most mentally present. Machiavellian thinking is not about romance. It is not about emotional games. It is about leverage. It is about understanding how attention works, how memory works, and how psychological tension keeps someone mentally connected to you. As Niccolò Machiavelli understood centuries ago, power is not about forcing people to feel something. Power is about creating conditions where their own mind keeps returning to you, because the strongest form of influence is not control over someone's actions. It is influence over their thoughts. When your presence creates unresolved curiosity, when your behavior cannot be fully predicted, when your absence creates mental friction, you become psychologically significant. And people don't chase what is available. They chase what occupies their mind. Today, we are breaking down 7 modern dark psychology principles that turn simple presence into mental permanence. These principles will not teach you how to chase attention. They will teach you how to create psychological gravity, how to become memorable, how to become mentally valuable, how to become someone the mind keeps returning to, without effort, without pressure, without need. Real power is being mentally unavoidable. Before we begin, I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. I control mental space. Number 1. Control mental space, not physical presence. Most people believe influence comes from being around someone as much as possible. They stay available. They respond instantly. They extend conversations. They try to keep the interaction alive for as long as they can. But constant presence does not create value. It creates familiarity, and familiarity relaxes the mind. When someone sees you too often, hears from you too frequently, or feels your energy all the time, your presence becomes normal, predictable, easy to process, and the human brain does not hold on to what feels ordinary. Strategic influence works differently. The goal is not to be around them longer. The goal is to stay in their mind after you leave. Because power is not measured by how long you were present. Power is measured by how long your impact lasts. This is where most people fail. They focus on duration instead of depth. They talk too much. They explain too much. They fill every silence. And in doing so, they remove the very thing that creates mental engagement: space. The mind needs space to replay. When an interaction is short but meaningful, something interesting happens. The brain begins to reconstruct the moment. It reviews your words. It analyzes your tone. It tries to understand the intention behind what you said. And that process creates repetition. Repetition creates familiarity. But when repetition happens inside their mind, it turns into fixation. Instead of giving them more of your time, give them something to think about. Say less, but make it precise. Speak with clarity, not volume. End conversations while the energy is still rising, not when it starts fading. Because the strongest psychological hook is an unfinished emotional state. When the interaction ends too cleanly, the brain moves on. But when it ends with curiosity, interest, or a slight sense of incompletion, the mind continues the interaction internally. This is how mental space is created. Another key principle is emotional imprint. People do not remember long conversations. They remember emotional shifts. A moment of unexpected insight, a sharp observation, a calm reaction when emotion was expected. When your presence creates a noticeable internal reaction, the brain tags that interaction as significant. And significance leads to recall. But recall becomes obsession only when combined with absence. If you remain constantly available, the mind doesn't need to revisit you. But when you create impact and then step away, the brain has no new input. So it reuses the old one. That's when your mental presence grows. Silence, after impact, is not distance. It is psychological amplification. Another mistake people make is trying to maintain momentum through constant contact. They believe continuity builds connection. In reality, constant contact removes mystery, and mystery is the fuel of mental engagement. When someone doesn't know exactly when they will hear from you again, when your appearances feel intentional rather than automatic, your presence gains weight. You move from routine to event, from expected to noticed. And once your presence is noticed, your absence becomes felt. That is the shift. From physical interaction to psychological occupation, the most influential individuals are not those who are always around. They are the ones whose brief presence leaves a lasting cognitive trace. Short interaction, deep impact, then space. Because when the conversation ends and their mind keeps replaying it, you are no longer interacting with them. You are living inside their thoughts. Drop this affirmation in the comments. My impact lingers. Number 2, be hard to categorize. The human mind is built for efficiency. It constantly scans people and situations, looking for patterns. The moment it believes it understands someone, it creates a mental label. Friendly, serious, emotional, logical, confident, quiet, predictable. And once that label is created, something important happens. Attention drops, because the brain believes there is nothing new to discover. This is why most people become forgettable. Their reactions are consistent. Their tone never changes. Their behavior follows a clear pattern. After a short time, others feel they know exactly who they are and what to expect. And when someone becomes predictable, the mind stops working. But obsession doesn't grow from certainty. It grows from complexity. When someone cannot fully define you, their brain keeps trying to figure you out. It looks for hidden meaning. It analyzes your behavior. It pays closer attention to your words, your mood shifts, your reactions. Because the mind is uncomfortable with incomplete understanding, it wants closure. And if you never give full closure, the attention continues. Most people make themselves easy to read. Their emotions are obvious. Their opinions are immediate. Their reactions are automatic. They reveal everything about themselves too quickly in an attempt to build connection. But full transparency removes intrigue. When someone feels they have seen all your layers, curiosity disappears. Strategic presence works differently. Instead of revealing your full emotional range at once, you allow different sides of your personality to appear at different moments. Calm in one situation, sharp in another, light humor when seriousness is expected, silence when others are reacting emotionally. This contrast creates cognitive tension. The mind begins asking quiet questions. Are they emotional or controlled? Are they warm or distant? Are they relaxed or intense? And the more difficult it becomes to place you into a single category, the more mental energy you receive. But this is not about acting or pretending. It is about emotional control and selective expression. Most people react automatically based on the situation. Strategic individuals respond intentionally. They choose when to show intensity, when to show restraint, when to engage, when to step back. This controlled variation prevents pattern formation, and without a stable pattern, the brain stays alert. Another important factor is emotional independence. When your reactions are not driven by approval, pressure, or social expectation, your behavior becomes less predictable. You are not easily influenced by the emotional tone around you. While others rise and fall with the environment, you remain centered. That stability, combined with selective variation, creates a powerful psychological effect. You feel grounded, but not simple, clear, but not fully revealed. And that balance keeps attention locked. People often think likability comes from being easy to understand, but memorability comes from depth. When someone feels there is more beneath the surface than what is visible, their mind keeps searching for the missing pieces. Every interaction becomes a small investigation. Every conversation becomes a new data point. And over time, that quiet analysis turns into mental investment. They are not just interacting with you, they are trying to understand you. And when someone is trying to understand you, you already occupy their thoughts. Because the rarest psychological position is not being liked. It is being interesting without trying. Number 3, build controlled uncertainty. The human brain is constantly trying to close loops. It wants clarity, it wants emotional certainty, it wants to know where things stand, what something means, and what will happen next. When everything feels defined, the mind relaxes. And when the mind relaxes, attention fades. This is why certainty feels comfortable but rarely creates psychological intensity. When someone knows exactly how you feel about them, exactly how you will respond, and exactly where they stand in your world, there is no reason for their mind to stay engaged. The emotional equation is complete. There is nothing left to solve. But when there is controlled uncertainty, something very different happens. The mind stays active. It replays conversations, looking for hidden signals. It analyzes tone, timing, and behavior. It tries to predict your emotional position. It searches for confirmation that never comes fully. And that search creates mental attachment. This does not mean confusion or mixed signals driven by emotional instability. That creates distrust and distance. Controlled uncertainty is different. It comes from emotional steadiness combined with selective clarity. Your energy is consistent, your behavior is calm, but your emotional availability is not fully defined. Sometimes you are warm, other times you are reserved. Sometimes you engage deeply, other times you step back without explanation. Your attention feels intentional, not automatic. This creates an open loop. The person cannot fully measure your emotional investment. They sense interest, but not certainty. They feel connection, but not possession. And that space between connection and certainty is where obsession grows. Another powerful element of controlled uncertainty is timing. Most people respond immediately to everything. Messages, invitations, Emotional signals. Their availability becomes predictable. Their attention feels guaranteed. But when your responses follow your own rhythm instead of emotional pressure, your presence feels chosen rather than given. The mind notices that difference. It begins to wonder what else occupies your attention. It begins to value the moments when you do engage. Because availability that is not constant feels valuable. Consistency in character combined with variability in access creates psychological tension. That tension keeps attention alive. Language also plays a role. People often over-explain their feelings, their intentions, and their thoughts because they want to avoid misunderstanding. But too much explanation removes mystery. When every emotion is defined and every intention is stated, there is no room for interpretation. And interpretation is what keeps the mind working. Strategic communication is clear, but not exhaustive. You express enough to create connection, but not so much that there is nothing left to question. The goal is not to create doubt about your integrity. The goal is to leave space around your emotional depth. When someone feels there is more beneath the surface than what you reveal, their attention naturally moves toward you. Because uncertainty creates curiosity, and curiosity creates mental repetition. One more factor makes controlled uncertainty powerful: emotional independence. When your mood, attention, and engagement are not driven by someone else's reactions, your emotional position feels self-contained. You are not adjusting yourself to maintain their comfort. You are operating from your own internal center. That independence signals strength. And strength combined with emotional space creates a powerful psychological pull. They cannot fully predict you, they cannot fully measure you, and the mind keeps trying, because the most persistent form of attention comes from unanswered emotional questions. Drop this affirmation in the comments. I create mystery. Number 4. Associate yourself with elevation. The human mind is naturally drawn to growth. People are constantly searching for environments, relationships, and influences that make them feel stronger, sharper, and more capable. They may not say it directly, but at a psychological level, everyone is asking the same quiet question. Does my life feel better when this person is around? If the answer is yes, attachment begins. If your presence makes someone feel more focused, more confident, more disciplined, or more ambitious, you become more than just another connection. You become psychologically valuable, and value creates mental priority. Most people try to create attachment through comfort alone. They focus on being supportive, agreeable, and easy to be around. While comfort builds familiarity, it doesn't always create deep psychological impact. Comfort relaxes the mind. Elevation activates it. When someone leaves an interaction with you feeling more motivated, more aware, or more mentally energized, their brain begins to associate you with progress. And the mind holds tightly to anything connected with personal improvement. This is because growth triggers reward chemistry. When people feel they are becoming better versions of themselves, they naturally return to the source of that feeling. Your role is not to entertain them. Your role is to elevate their state. This can happen through the way you think, the way you speak, and the standards you carry. When your conversations bring clarity instead of noise, when your perspective challenges them to think deeper instead of staying comfortable, your presence begins to stand out. You are no longer just interaction. You become influence. Another important factor is emotional atmosphere. If your energy is calm, grounded, and forward-focused, people begin to regulate themselves around you. Your presence becomes stabilizing. In a world filled with distraction and emotional volatility, stability itself feels powerful. When someone feels more centered after being around you, your psychological weight increases. But elevation is not created by advice or correction alone. Most people resist being told what to do. True elevation comes through example, when your lifestyle reflects discipline, purpose, and direction. People feel the contrast without you saying a word. Your habits communicate standards, your focus communicates priorities, and that silent signal creates respect. Respect is stronger than attraction, because respect builds long-term mental positioning. Another powerful element is selective reinforcement. When you acknowledge strength, effort, or progress in someone instead of just offering casual praise, your approval feels meaningful. You're not giving validation freely, you're recognizing growth. And when your recognition feels earned rather than automatic, your words carry weight. People begin to value your opinion, and once someone values your opinion, they begin to think about how they appear in your eyes, even when you are not present. That is psychological elevation, turning into mental presence. There is also a contrast effect at work. If your environment, conversations, and mindset consistently move toward improvement, other environments may start to feel less stimulating by comparison. Your presence becomes associated with momentum, and momentum is addictive. People naturally return to places and individuals who make them feel like they are moving forward instead of standing still. This is how elevation creates attachment without pressure. You are not asking for attention. Your presence earns it, because the mind prioritizes what improves its future. Number 5. Master emotional contrast. The human brain is designed to notice change. It does not hold on to what stays the same for too long. When emotions, tone, and behavior remain constant, the mind adapts quickly. What once felt engaging becomes normal. What once felt special becomes expected. And what becomes expected slowly loses emotional impact. This is why constant warmth, constant seriousness, or constant intensity eventually fades in effect. Even positive energy, when delivered without variation, becomes background noise. But contrast resets attention. Contrast creates emotional movement, and emotional movement is what the brain remembers. Most people operate in a single emotional mode. They are always serious, always playful, always agreeable, or always intense. Their reactions follow the same pattern regardless of the situation. Because the pattern is stable, others stop paying close attention. They believe they already know what response is coming. But when your emotional range is controlled and dynamic, something different happens. The mind stays alert. If you are calm and focused most of the time, a moment of sharp humor feels powerful. If you are disciplined and direct, a rare moment of warmth feels meaningful. If you normally speak with restraint, a brief moment of intensity carries weight. The brain encodes these shifts because they break expectation. And what breaks expectation becomes memorable. Emotional contrast is not about mood swings or unpredictability driven by impulse. It is about controlled variation. Your core presence remains stable, but your expression adjusts with intention. You know when to be light. You know when to be serious. You know when to be distant. You know when to be fully present. This flexibility creates depth. People begin to experience different emotional layers around you. One moment feels focused and purposeful. Another moment feels relaxed and human. That range makes your presence feel alive instead of flat. Flat personalities are easy to process. Layered emotional experiences stay in memory. Another reason contrast works is because it creates emotional spikes. The brain remembers peaks and shifts more than steady states. A short moment of unexpected encouragement, a sudden insightful comment, or a calm reaction during tension creates a stronger imprint than long periods of neutral interaction. These moments become reference points. Later, the mind returns to them. It replays the tone, the expression, the timing. And through that replay, your psychological presence grows. Contrast also increases perceived authenticity. When someone shows only one emotional tone all the time, it can feel mechanical or controlled. But when your emotional expression changes naturally based on context, you feel real, grounded, and emotionally intelligent. People trust emotional intelligence more than emotional intensity. They feel that you are aware, responsive, and internally balanced. This balance makes others more emotionally attentive around you. They start reading your reactions more carefully. They look for subtle changes in your tone, your expressions, your level of engagement. And the moment someone starts monitoring your emotional signals, your influence increases, because attention has shifted toward you. Another important effect of emotional contrast is emotional value. When warmth is constant, it feels ordinary. When attention is always available, it feels automatic. But when warmth appears selectively, when engagement increases at meaningful moments and pulls back at others, each positive interaction feels earned. And what feels earned feels valuable. Value increases focus. Focus increases mental presence. Over time, your emotional range becomes part of your psychological signature. People don't just remember what you said. They remember how it felt to be around you. And emotional memory is stronger than informational memory. Drop this affirmation in the comments. I create emotional impact. Number 6. Exit before you peak. Most people stay too long. They extend the conversation. They keep the interaction going. They try to hold the moment until the energy slowly fades. They believe more time creates stronger connection. But in psychology, overextension reduces impact. Every interaction has an emotional curve. It rises as interest builds, engagement increases, and attention becomes focused. But if the interaction continues past its natural peak, something predictable happens. The energy drops. The conversation becomes repetitive. The emotional intensity levels out. The sense of novelty disappears, and the brain quietly registers the ending as ordinary. What people remember most is not the middle of an experience. They remember the emotional high point and how it ended. If the ending feels flat, the entire interaction loses strength in memory. Strategic individuals understand this. They don't leave when the energy is gone. They leave when the energy is still rising. This creates an unfinished emotional state. When the interaction ends at a high point, during engagement, curiosity, laughter, or deep focus, the brain does not get closure. It expected continuation. Instead, it receives absence. And absence at the right moment creates psychological tension. The mind begins replaying the interaction. It goes back to the last moment. It reviews the conversation. It holds on to the emotional state that was interrupted, because completion relaxes the brain. Interruption activates it. This principle applies everywhere. Conversations, meetings, social interactions, even digital communication. If you always stay until there is nothing left to say, your presence becomes routine. But when you disengage with calm confidence while the interaction still feels alive, your presence gains weight. You signal something important without saying a word. Your time is structured. Your attention is intentional. Your life does not revolve around the interaction, and that perception increases your psychological value. Another important element of strategic exit is emotional self-control. Many people stay longer because they are enjoying the attention. They want to maintain the connection. They fear that leaving too early might weaken the bond. But controlled withdrawal does the opposite. It protects the emotional peak. It preserves the positive association. It leaves the other person wanting continuation instead of relief. Relief is dangerous in social dynamics. If someone feels the interaction finally ended, the emotional memory weakens. But if they feel it ended too soon, the experience expands in their mind. They imagine what the next conversation will be like. They anticipate the next interaction. And anticipation strengthens mental attachment. Timing also communicates status. When you can end an interaction naturally, without apology, without over-explaining, and without hesitation, you project internal stability. You are not managing the moment based on their reaction. You are moving according to your own rhythm. That independence creates quiet authority. Another subtle effect of leaving early is emotional contrast. Your presence feels focused and high quality because it never stretches into boredom. Every interaction feels intentional, contained, and meaningful. Short interaction, strong energy, clean exit. Over time, this pattern builds a psychological expectation. People learn that time with you feels engaging, but never excessive. And when something feels limited yet positive, its perceived value increases. They don't just remember the interaction, they look forward to the next one, because the mind holds on to unfinished positive experiences longer than completed ones. Number 7. Never signal need. Nothing weakens psychological influence faster than visible dependence. The moment someone senses that you need their attention, their approval, their response, or their presence to feel secure, the emotional balance shifts. Value drops. Not because they lose respect for you as a person, but because the dynamic changes from choice to requirement. And the human mind is drawn toward what feels chosen, not what feels dependent. Most people signal need without realizing it. They seek constant reassurance. They check for reactions. They adjust their behavior to maintain approval. Their emotional state rises and falls based on how the other person responds. This creates pressure. And pressure reduces attraction, attention, and psychological interest. Because when your emotional stability depends on someone else, your presence begins to feel heavy. High psychological value comes from internal fullness. When your life feels structured, your focus is clear, and your emotional state is not controlled by external validation, your presence communicates independence. Independence changes perception. Instead of feeling that you're trying to keep someone close, it feels like you are allowing them into an already complete world. And that difference is powerful. People are naturally curious about individuals who appear centered without external reinforcement. When your mood does not shift based on delayed responses, reduced attention, or changing circumstances, you signal emotional strength. Emotional strength creates psychological safety, but more importantly, it creates psychological respect. Respect increases attention. Attention increases mental presence. Another critical factor is emotional restraint. Many people overexpress interest because they believe it will strengthen connection. They reveal too much, too quickly. They offer constant availability. They communicate their level of investment before the other person has developed their own. This removes tension. And without tension, the mind relaxes. Strategic restraint doesn't mean coldness or distance. It means your engagement grows naturally instead of being given immediately at full intensity. You respond with interest, but not urgency. You show appreciation, but not dependency. You engage, but you do not revolve. This creates emotional space for the other person to move toward you, instead of simply receiving your attention. When someone feels that your time, focus, and emotional energy are selective, they begin to value access. Access becomes something earned, not assumed. And when access feels valuable, the mind becomes protective of it. Another important element of non-neediness is attention direction. If your life appears full of goals, priorities, and personal momentum, your attention feels divided by purpose rather than focused on any single person. This signals abundance. Abundance increases perceived value because people instinctively assign higher importance to individuals whose time and energy are limited by meaningful commitments. Your presence begins to feel like an opportunity instead of a necessity. There is also a powerful psychological shift that happens when someone realizes you are emotionally stable without them. Instead of feeling responsible for your emotional state, they begin to wonder how they fit into your world. That curiosity moves their focus toward you. They begin investing attention. They begin seeking your engagement, not because you asked, because your absence feels expensive. The strongest position in any social dynamic is quiet self-sufficiency. You are warm, but not dependent, engaged, but not attached, present, but not seeking, because the rarest and most attractive signal of power is this: I want connection, but I don't require it. Obsession is not created by manipulation. It is created by architecture. The mind responds to patterns, tension, and value, not to pressure. If you understand this, you stop trying to force reactions. You stop chasing attention. You stop exhausting yourself in ways that ultimately diminish your presence. Scarcity creates value. Absence intensifies desire. When you show up selectively, when your attention is intentional, the human brain begins to assign importance to every word, every glance, every moment you are present. It remembers what feels rare, not what is constant. Uncertainty creates thought. The more someone cannot fully predict you, the more energy they invest mentally. They try to map you. They try to decode you. That energy, the energy of unresolved curiosity, is what creates mental obsession. Contrast creates imprint, moments of intensity followed by calm, focus followed by humor, presence followed by withdrawal. These emotional shifts ingrain memory. The brain encodes peaks and valleys more deeply than steady monotony. If your interactions are layered with contrast, your influence lingers even when you are gone. Non-neediness creates pursuit. When someone sees that your world does not revolve around their attention, they step forward voluntarily. They chase, not because you demand it, but because their mind perceives your presence as valuable, even scarce. Machiavellian power is simple. Control perception, control timing, control access. Master these three elements, and you no longer need to force connection. You no longer need to explain yourself. You do not beg for attention. Instead, you create conditions where the mind chooses you, again and again. This is not about being loved. It is not about being liked. The rarest position in influence is to be mentally unavoidable, to occupy the thoughts of others without effort, to remain a persistent presence in their mind, even when you are not physically there. If you take these principles seriously and apply them strategically, you can create relationships, networks, and environments where your presence matters far beyond what most people achieve. Your interactions become energy, your absence becomes weight, and your influence becomes enduring. If this video helped you understand the power of presence, make sure to hit the like button, share it with someone who needs to see this, and subscribe to the channel for more strategies on influence, psychology, and mental dominance. Drop a comment with your affirmation. I am mentally unavoidable. Your mind is your weapon, and now you know how to make others think about you long after you leave.